Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 are here to do power rankings for SEC baseball after, what have we had now? 3 full weekends of play? My goodness, time is flying. We'll start at the bottom. And let me just be really clear. It is really, really, really hard to separate these teams right now because some teams have played tough schedules. Some teams have played nobody. We kind of go on what we think about teams going into the season and maybe make some adjustments from there. But it is impossible to get a grip on it because playing bad teams and playing good teams is not an even playing field. Very hard to decide how to weight those things, but we do our best. Okay, I'm starting at the bottom with Kentucky. I've had the Cats here for a while. I got some reservations about that. Kentucky's only given up 34 runs. Of course, has only scored 78, which is the worst mark in the league, tied with Vandy. The Cats are at 14, but the Cats can apparently pitch based on what we've seen so far, and I'm always hesitant to put a team that can really pitch down that low, but let's be honest. I think there is going to be uncertainty all over the rankings. I don't know what to make most of these teams yet. That's the best we can do, so I may have underrated Kentucky by several spots at 14, but based on preseason, where we thought they'd be and having a hard time knowing what to do with them so far, that's where I've got them.
Yeah, I don't have much to add other than we should have waited to do our power rankings until like 2 weeks from now. Like we should have started the power rankings then because that's when, of course, SEC, it's hard to think 10 days until there are series being played in the conference. That's wild to think about, but we're almost there. Yeah, but like you said, this is the case for everybody. Like you can certainly take away some things for certain teams, others maybe not based on the schedule, and somebody's got to be 1 through 14, as I like to say, Chris. So.
Yeah, I've got Mississippi State at 13. And this is a team that I don't know that I know what to do with, and I don't know their fans know what to do with because, my goodness, they wanted a full-on coaching change a few days ago, and they still may be there. I haven't checked Twitter on that lately. State has allowed 86 runs, which is far and away the most in the SEC. State can also hit. State also has gotten a series win over Arizona State, which is supposed to be, I think, decent. Again, when you've got teams that are playing quality teams and teams that are not, it's hard to know what to do with. I may have State underranked at 13. In fact, decent chance I do, but it is hard to distinguish these teams. You got to put them somewhere. That's where I went this week.
Guess who opens up conference play against each other on March 17th? That'd be Kentucky and Mississippi State. Something's got to give here, Chris. Something's got to give. So.
One team that is pitched and one team that is not. State has walked so many guys. I'll be honest. I almost always lean towards teams that can really pitch before I lean towards teams that can really hit. Having said that, Blake, have you seen some of the offensive numbers in college baseball so far? I mean, we are back to near 1998 levels of offense, and I don't know what is going on. I have some ideas, but
save those for another video.
Yeah, I as an aside, I don't like the direction that college baseball has taken on some things of late. Okay, another team that's had some pitching issues, but has also gotten some quality wins. I think took a series from Georgia Tech this weekend. That's Georgia. I've got Georgia at 12. Could argue higher. The Bulldogs have got a veteran lineup that can really hit. Yeah, I don't know that I trust Georgia's pitching, and again, that's problematic, but could be wrong here too.
Well, like you said, I think it's just a matter of like, what do you do with some of these teams? And you just, I mean, we talked about like, if you value pitching ahead of, in some of these scenarios, then that's something you can look at. But, I mean, look, they do play Georgia Tech this weekend. Or no, wait, they play Georgia Tech. They won 2 or 3. Now they play Georgia Southern. They got Charleston Southern after that, Wofford. So like, again, it's like, what do you do with some of these teams until we actually get to having them play against each other, which Georgia will open up against South Carolina on the 17th. So,
by the way, if you want to get angry at me that I've way underrated your team, you might well be right. And some of these are probably going to look laughable in May. I'll just call it now.
There's no bias involved when they do that. So
no, never.
We're just playing with you guys. It's fine. Have bias. Have a lot of good. Otherwise, you're not supporting your team if you don't have any bias. Come on, please. That's the
Right.
fun in being a fan. So
I got Missouri at 11 for lack of a better idea. Missouri had that really good first weekend. I think people know I saw them. Went to FIU, won a series, and let's see. It's been a parade of nobody since, but Missouri has taken care of business and won those games. I'd like to see Missouri play some good teams and get another read on what that team is. But again, really liked what Missouri did the first couple of weekends when it did play some better teams. And so I've got the Tigers at 11.
yep, put up some runs, but like you said, I don't know how much you can get out of them playing Western Illinois and in JIT before they open up against Tennessee in Columbia. But that again, that'll be a great barometer, I think. And I know we're looking ahead a week and a half here, but like that is a really interesting one because that's where you really start to figure out, all right, how does Missouri stack up to a Tennessee type team? And yeah, that's where we start to learn a lot more, I think.
Auburn at 10. Another team that you could make the case on results for moving up. Auburn swept Lipscomb this weekend. It took 2 or 3 from USC last weekend, took 2 or 3 from Indiana. You got a lot of teams in front of Auburn that were preseason ranked, a lot in the top 10. Butch Thompson's teams always seem to outperform expectations. And so, again, for lack of a better idea, I've got Auburn at 10, and I don't think that we'll learn a whole lot, although Southeastern Louisiana is 8-4. So maybe we'll learn a little bit, but it's where we settle on the Tigers for now.
I feel like we're just repeating ourselves. Like, yeah, it's we
We
don't know.
are.
Like, it's like what do you do? Like, yeah, this is where they are. If you want to make a case to move them up, you can look at some of the things and say, yeah, maybe they're better than this team or that team in that area. But whatever. 12 games in, it's just yeah, you can only move teams around so much. That's when it gets to this point. So, like we said, we should have waited to do our power rankings until SEC play started. But we're doing them anyways because, hey, we got nothing else to do around here on Southeastern 14. There's nothing else going on. So, yeah, we're doing them for you guys. So,
I've got A&M at 9, and I actually had A&M and Auburn swapped, and then A&M had that marathon 16-inning win over Texas Tech. It beat Rice 13-1 on Saturday, lost 14-3 to Louisville. Of course, A&M's got that series loss to, who was it, Portland at home. Aggies really haven't hit so far, which, A&M did that last year too. Didn't really hit until SEC play started. I've got A&M at 9 right now, but because of some of those bad losses, and also because some of the teams in front of them have really done some work. But if it's like last year, Jim Schlossnagel's team, we really can't fairly evaluate till we get well into probably into April.
well, look, and when you do have those kind of results, like you said, they lose the series to Portland. I mean, that's where like
So
you
that's
have
what
to
we
move
got.
a team. Yeah, I mean, you have to move a team down, right? Just based on what other teams are doing. So I think that's what you have to keep in mind. They lost the 3 straight games. Lamar, Portland twice, and so yeah, I mean, you have to move some teams around at that point. And like we said, there's not an exact science at this point in the season, but it is where they are. They are where they are right now. But obviously, they have great opportunities because we've talked about their SEC schedule before. What a start, right? LSU, Tennessee, Ole Miss, their first 3 series, so that will be a lot of fun for the Aggies.
All right, next I've got the 2 teams with the largest run differentials so far. South Carolina plus 90 at number 8, Alabama at plus 94 at number 7. Alabama, the only unbeaten team in the SEC so far. South Carolina's schedule is the problem. UMass Lowell, Penn did take 2 or 3 from Clemson at 3 different venues this weekend. So that was truly a neutral series on balance. I don't know what really Clemson is yet. 5-6, Eric Backage's first year. Alabama is dominated. It's an old team. It can pitch. It's got a veteran lineup. Again, a lot of stuff to like there. What do you take from series wins over Richmond, High Point, and UIC? I don't really know. I don't know that Alabama's played a good team yet, but it has dominated. It has done what it needed to do. It's hard to go 12-0 against anybody in baseball. So, again, for lack of a better idea on those two teams, I've got Alabama at 7, Carolina at 8.
Feels fitting their group together because they've basically done the same thing. They scored a lot of runs, haven't given up a lot of runs, but the strength of the competition, maybe, it'll start to pick up, as we said, in a week and a half. So I think it's nice to have them paired together because, they basically have done the same thing in some instances. So.
Okay, Arkansas at 6. Arkansas has really not played much of anybody since going 2 for 3 on opening weekend out in Texas in the College Baseball Showdown, including beating Oklahoma State 18-1. I think that's right before OSU threw 2 no-hitters. How wild was that? Back-to-back days, by the way. You don't see that in baseball much.
Mm-mm.
But since then, Arkansas hadn't played much of anybody, although it's scored a lot of runs. The pitching injuries are starting to pile up. In fact, 12 runs allowed to Eastern Illinois on February the 26th and 9 allowed to Illinois State. Of course, Jax Wiggins done for the year. But, man, you never bet against Dave Van Horn. I'm just going to kind of keep Arkansas there in the middle for lack of a better idea. It feels like if you move Arkansas down several spots, Van Horn's going to make you look ridiculous. The pitching and the pitching injuries make me hesitant to move up the Razorbacks anymore for now.
Yeah, it feels like they're kind of in this range again. If you want to move them up 1, down 1, whatever you think, I think just based on like I said, the pitching injuries and I think this is about right for them because, like we talked about, I don't know that you could put them behind in Alabama and South Carolina right now, just based on because those are two teams feel very similar in terms of what they've done. But for Arkansas, you do feel like okay, you see some of the things, but you do have your hesitations too, and I feel like we can say that about a lot of these teams as of right now. But we'll learn more coming soon.
Vanderbilt has 4 losses. That is the tied for the second highest amount loss total in the league. Vanderbilt's also played the toughest schedule. The Commodores have had 3 competitive weekends in terms of opponents so far. Vanderbilt's got a run differential of plus 27. That is the second lowest in the league to Mississippi State. But again, schedule. Vanderbilt's also only scored 78 runs, which again tied with Kentucky for the lowest in the league. I watch Vanderbilt. I don't know what to make of this team. It and Ole Miss, which I've got at 4, both played in that really bizarre Cambria Classic up in Minneapolis this weekend on the Vikings football field. Was at US Bank Stadium, which they should never play baseball there again. That was the most bizarre thing that I've ever watched. Vandy started the season in this range. It's 8-4 against a good schedule. It has taken 2 of 3 in Texas in the same event that Arkansas started the season in. It took 2 of 3 with UCLA. It took 2 of 3 against the Big Ten, although I don't know if that loss to Nebraska was something you want in your resume. Did beat Maryland, which was ranked until this weekend. Vandy at 5, Ole Miss at 4. Ole Miss has scored 115 runs, given up 54, had some pitching issues. That's where I've got those teams for now. And by the way, those 2 teams will face off in Nashville 2 weekends from now.
I feel like Vandy's been about what we expected in terms of we're like, all right, you feel pretty confident what the pitching is going to be, even if it hasn't been flawless. It's just figuring out what you're going to get beyond that. And it's kind of what we talked about in the preview. So, it's do the bats pick up? Obviously, they played a tough schedule, but yeah, so we'll see how that turns out for them. And like you said, Ole Miss, the team that, they're the defending champion, and we keep talking about that. I mean, they're winning games, and they got Southern Miss tonight, Tuesday. Yeah, tonight's Tuesday. It's hard to keep up to as much stuff as we're doing. I don't even know what day it is hardly anymore. They play Southern Miss tonight as we're recording this on Tuesday. So then they got Purdue before the Vanderbilt series next week. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, when these two open up against each other in Nashville next Thursday. So.
Okay, Tennessee is 3. I could make the case for ranking the Vols higher. Tennessee has scored 112 runs and giving up 27. That's pretty amazing. Pythag record of 12-1, actual record of 11-2. Now, look, Tennessee lost its 2 opening games of the year against really the only 2 good teams it has played in Arizona and in Grand Canyon. Lost those 3-1 and 4-3. A was opening weekend. B was in a neutral park. Since then, has trounced Alabama A&M in 2 midweek games. Destroyed a bad Dayton team the next weekend. Beat a bad Charleston Southern team in 2 midweek games, and beat a 1-10 Gonzaga team over the weekend, winning the last one 17-9. And by the way, speaking of pitching, okay, Tennessee's got 27 runs allowed, by far the lowest in the league. And speaking of pitching in our state, Vandy threw a no-hitter this weekend over Minnesota. Meant to mention that earlier. Again, I tend to lean towards pitching. We know what Tennessee's pitching is going to be in its rotation. We know it's got a pretty good bullpen. But again, Tennessee really hasn't beaten anybody yet, which is why I didn't slide the Vols up any further than I did. But could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, look, they haven't lost a game since the one we talked about against Grand Canyon, and it's like, what do you do? Is there really that much separation between all these teams at the top? And I think that's what we talk about every year in the SEC. I mean, you've got legitimately, usually 4 or 5 of the top 5 teams in the SEC, or 4 or 5 of the top 8 teams in the country, like, or 9 teams in the country, whatever. And I think it's just like, is there really that much that separates some of these teams? To this point, no. And yeah, so Tennessee being here, I mean, again, it's not like they're not one of the top probably 5 teams in the country. So, yeah.
I got Florida at 2, which is where I had Florida a week ago. Couldn't very well move the Gators down after taking 2 or 3 from Miami. My goodness, Florida's scoring some runs. 147 of them in 11 games, Blake Lovell.
Not bad.
The pitching, I'm starting to have some potential issues with. Florida's given up 72 runs. It is hitting and walking a lot of guys. Kevin O'Sullivan usually figures it out on that end. The Gators have got a lot of talent, but kind of an interesting team for the Florida Gators. I didn't know it would look exactly the way it has.
Well, you can give up runs if you're putting up as many as they are. So now in some instances, that's not working out too well. But yeah, I mean, they are definitely putting up runs. So like you said, it's just a matter of, it's going to be interesting to see, as you get into the grind of SEC play, how that starts to, balance out a little bit, and, see which side wins out in terms of, give up less runs, score as many runs you've been scoring. Like, that's kind of always the fun thing to look at. But yeah, no doubting the Gators are hitting the ball right now. So
that series to open in McKeithen Stadium against Alabama in 2 weekends looking really intriguing, because again, Alabama's really pitched. Alabama's scored some runs too, and that'll be one of the first testing its good competition that Alabama get, and that'll be on the road too. All right, LSU at number 1. That was hands down the easiest selection so far. LSU is sitting here at 10-1, 123 runs scored. More encouraging, only 34 allowed. We thought LSU's pitching would be better, but you had the Grant Taylor injury, and you didn't know how some of these guys would throw in the SEC, particularly Paul Skeens. I mean, you had an idea. Skeens has been tremendous, probably the pitcher of the year to this point. LSU's got 1 loss. That was to Iowa, which I think is ranked this week, and this one was easy. I think LSU is in the top spot. It was preseason number 1. The Tigers stay there in my mind until they play their way out of the spot, if they did that, which I wouldn't bank on.
Yeah, there's no reason to move them. As we said with all these other teams, there's no reason to move them. You don't move them, especially at this point. And they have the number 1 team coming in, and I don't really know that, even a lost Iowa changes that. So yeah, Tigers looking as advertised right now. And again, we will learn a lot more, as we get into SEC play, and see how it kind of pans out. And I mean, obviously, they got an interesting game, I guess, against Lamar on Wednesday, because we talked about Lamar beating A&M and all that. So hey, you never know. But I think LSU, as we said, certainly deserving of the number 1 spot here.
Yeah, I mean, the schedule so far just hasn't been a lot to it. Central Connecticut, the Round Rock Classic, again, that loss to Iowa, that the outlier, beat a Kansas State team that's usually decent. Same with Sam Houston State. Although Sam Houston State's 6-7 so far, I don't know what to be. But Sam Houston State's had some good baseball teams and put some pro prospects out there. Anyway, it's just, boy, these were difficult to do this week because you just hadn't seen most of these teams play good teams. We're two guys trying to keep an eye on baseball and basketball. And so I promise you, when it is baseball only and the real teams are playing each other, we will be as locked in as anybody. But for now, that's what we can do. And boy, Blake, cannot wait. 2 weekends from now, we got opening of SEC series. We got the NCAA tournament. I don't know how we're going to keep up with it all, but we'll manage to find a way, and just cannot wait for that weekend. That's going to be one of maybe the best sports weekend of the year in my mind.
Should be a lot of fun. We'll have you covered. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. That always helps us out. And yeah, more SEC tournament coverage, NCAA tournament coverage, SEC baseball opening, like I said, opening weekend and conference play 10 days from now. And so, yeah, just we got football stuff going up too. So like we just got all kinds of stuff. So hit that subscribe button.
Thanks for watching us at Southeastern 14. He's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We'll see you again with more coverage of SEC football, baseball, and basketball.